Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio number 32, The War on Cyberwomen. I'm Allison Tiemann and I'll be your host tonight, and with me is Anna Cherry. Want to say hi?
Hello.
And Theron Mayer. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Hi. And tonight we're going to do one of two things. We're going to review an article that is on the BBC called Internet Work. 100 Women, 2015. Social Media, quote-unquote, Fuels Gender Violence by Valerie Parasio, World Service Affairs social reporter or something or other. And we'll also take your mail. So I guess we'll get started on that. And before we begin, if anybody's out there who enjoys writing about news items, and so they're basically a news hound, we could use a volunteer to help us out with writing up news items and finding news items. So if you're interested in doing something like that with us, please drop us a line at topic@badgerpod.com. That's topic@badgerpod.com, and it'd be greatly appreciated if you're out there, if you're our news hound, greatly appreciated if you could help us out. All right, let's begin. Okay, do you need a link here, Anna, to this article, as it were?
Probably.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna send you the link.
Thank you.
Oh wait. Should have done this all before, but as we know, we always do this show on the skin of our teeth, or by the skin of our teeth, not on the skin of our teeth. All right, there you go.
It doesn't lived-in feel that way, you know?
Yeah, it's a lived-in. Some will call it amateurish. We consider it lived in. It's a feature, not a flaw. All right. So 100 Women, 2015. Social media, quote, fuels gendered violence. Mobile devices and the internet can be powerful tools, but they can also be weapons. The UN has issued a wake-up call about cyber violence against women. Dun, dun, dun. It says it can be just as damaging as physical abuse, especially as technology can now reach remote corners of the world. When young British actress Emma Watson spoke up for gender equality at a United Nations meeting, she didn't know she was making herself a target of relentless stalking by a global mob.
So hyperbolical. I didn't even think Emma Watson would describe it as such.
Because all the haters that she had beforehand by being a successful actress who made a lot of money playing Hermione, all that was not a hate mob. That's just normal part of being a celebrity. But this is a hate mob.
Yeah, well, all right. Making herself a target of relentless stalking by a global mob. I'm guessing that they're also including the video response that I gave to Emma Watson's He for She, where I referred to it as progressive as estrogen inflamed baboon ass cheeks. And is that what they're referring to? Just the criticism that she's gotten online? Because I know she's gotten a lot of criticism.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's face it. If we had a female Hitler who identified as a feminist, all of that speech would be fine. Like, it very much has to do with if it's a woman who claims she's a feminist and there's criticism, that is instantly terrible and horrible and like the worst thing you could ever do, ever.
Well, I mean, even if it was a feminist Hitler, they probably would still say...
Yeah, regardless of what kind of evil stuff the person is saying, if you dare to oppose a hateful ideology that's coming from a self-proclaimed feminist, you're an awful person. You don't deserve to exist or have your opinion heard because that's hate.
Because you hate women.
Yeah.
You hate
But here's
women.
the thing. As someone, all the time on my channel, I criticize people and organizations, and I have no hesitation when it comes to being harsh and being realistic and calling it like it is. And I also I make no reservations when it comes to implying what it says about these individuals and groups' character if they maintain the positions that they hold. And I guess some oversensitive people could see that as hate simply because I don't sugarcoat what I say. I just happen to say it kind of calmly, and I guess I can get away with it that way.
Yeah, how much of this is just criticism or just the flack that anybody who's a public figurehead can expect? I mean, oh, it gets better. The article gets better. Have you read this at all, Anna? Because I have read this article, and it gets better. It gets so much better.
Through it while I can.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, it gets worse, but it gets better.
It gets better and getting worse. You know,
Yeah.
the sarcastic better.
It's better for parody, really. Just more material.
All right, so let's move on to the next paragraph. Neither did video game developer Zoe Quinn know that she would suffer abuse as a result of stepping into a male-dominated world. She became the target of harassment after details of her private life were released online by an ex-boyfriend. His revelations led to accusations that she had had a relationship with a gaming journalist in an attempt to get positive reviews for her game. The events sparked what became known as Gamergate. Dun, dun, dun! A campaign, some argue, is about ethics and journalism, but others consider it to be a largely misogynist hate campaign. They use campaign twice in a sentence. That's annoying. Let's just. This is pretty much typical, par for the course by now, eh?
Really quickly, just from what I understand, the whole Zoe Quinn post, why that was released publicly and written actually with intention to be dramatic by Aaron, because he tried to post this information on a few forums in Something Awful and other websites, and they were struck down by moderators and they were deleted. So he then created the Zoe post to get people's attention. So it was a calculated move in that sense, because there was already evidence of the Gamergate conspiracy with him just trying to publish some information about the collusion. And he kept getting shut down, and he's like, fine, I'm going to make it an explosive drama post that people can't help but read. So that's just an interesting little side note there.
Yeah, and the other thing is that if you read through, and I have this on good authority from people that I trust and respect, if you read through the chat logs, she's an abusive asshat.
And she admits to all of her wrongdoings, including cheating on him with those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so these individuals are absolutely defending her based on the fact that she has, an innie, and she's not afraid to play the victim, and that's so she gets support for that alone. They're willing to erase all of her personal choices in being abusive, in potentially sleeping with people, or I guess it's not potentially at this point, but sleeping with people for positive coverage. They're willing to erase all of these personal choices and their consequences just to maintain this narrative. So essentially, what's interesting is that we can all say that Zoe Quinn is a villain in all of this, but she's also being used by the people who are propping her up. If people genuinely cared about Zoe Quinn, they would tell her, your behavior is appalling. You need to have consequences to it, because you are a person who makes moral choices. And if you don't have the negative consequences to your behavior, there's no point making positive moral choices. It's meaningless.
Well, in my experience with women, unfortunately, nobody is going to do that to a woman. Women are not going to do that to each other because they want to be able to get away with that behavior and not have a moral bar that they all live up to. Women are just not good at that. And men are not going to tell her that because every man that is a friend, at least in my experience, has been waiting for his turn to possibly be a mate. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get said that needs to be said, like holding them accountable, because people try to get in their good favors. That's kind of the situation we live in. There's rampant gynocentrism in that sense. Women are valued above all else, and so people will lie to them in order to have their good favor. That's predominantly what I've seen, and very few people actually dare to hold a woman accountable for like crappy emotional behavior towards others.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the more and more I've been involved in men's rights and been involved in tracking and observing feminist nonsense, I realized that holding women accountable, in other words, treating them as adults, is misogyny. So that would be misogynistic, Alison. Don't you dare propose that.
No, you're right. Not erasing women's personhood in order to focus exclusively on their femaleness is definitely misogyny. I mean, because Zoe's personal choices are an aspect of her person, and when you don't respond to them the way you would respond to a man, if a man had been in Zoe's position, there's no one would have defended him. Well, maybe if he was a liberal, it's possible that these individuals, the social justice warriors, would have defended him. But there would have been much more of a schism, I believe, in the people who would be willing to defend him and the people who wouldn't. But it's like, because they don't give her choices the same consequences as a man, and maybe we could even it out, bring the consequences up for women, reduce the consequences slightly for men, and not make them responsible for everything. But because they don't, she doesn't really have a personhood. She just has a womanhood. And that's it. And it's a fine distinction, but one that matters to me. Maybe it just doesn't matter to people like Zoe. They'd just rather get away with shit.
Well, it doesn't matter to the feminist types. It just, like, I never hear feminists get angry at people not holding women accountable for the shit that they do. Because that's not the fun stuff. That's not the fun stuff, you know. The responsibility that comes with having certain privileges. That's kind of the downfall of freedom, right? You can only be so free because with every new freedom you have, you'll have some responsibility around having that freedom. But obviously, there would be no problem with kind of snubbing that responsibility. That's not misogyny. That's not anti-women sentiment. You know, not holding women accountable for the things that they do.
Well, the thing with freedom is that the more freedom women have, the more they become the stewards and the captains of their own destiny. The more they have more control over their own lives than anyone else. And then they turn around, and these institutions like the UN seem dead set on teaching women that everybody but themselves has control over their life. So women essentially are left adrift in a rudderless fucking boat because no one will acknowledge or say to a woman, you are the one with the greatest amount of control over your life. If you don't like your life, you only have one person to blame. But I think we should move on because we'll never get through this.
Hallelujah.
Similarly, Hollywood star Jennifer Lawrence found herself the victim of a sex crime after her nude photos were leaked and endlessly distributed in the digital space. It's time for a worldwide wake-up call, says the UN. Wait, so like male actors don't get their fucking...
Yeah, I have one thing to say. Justin fucking Bieber. They leaked out
I have a
photos
second thing to say. Anthony Weiner. I mean, the guy's reputation got destroyed because everyone paid attention. Oh, Hulk Hogan. How about the fact that Gawker talked about how terrible it is that Jennifer Lawrence had her photos leaked because she bitched about it louder than all the other 10,000 female celebrities, by the way. And they still wanted to keep the Hulk Hogan tape up, regardless of people saying take it down. He doesn't consent to this. They didn't give a fuck in his case, but in her case, apparently now it's against women. When you get your stuff hacked as a celebrity, it's just against women. That's the only time it happens, just like rape, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, everyone knows now what. And the thing is that, like, Justin Bieber, he didn't even, like, take. Like, I hate standing up for Justin Bieber because I'm really not a fan in any way, but it's just a double standard because, you know, Justin Bieber didn't even take a picture of himself. He didn't even take a nude selfie. He was spied upon, and now the whole world knows what his penis looks like. So it's just this double standard. And just with Justin Bieber again, he was on, I think he did an ad for Calvin Klein, and the pictures were, I'm pretty sure, were photoshopped to make him look more muscular. And the amount of male shaming when this came out in the news, and just how normalized it was, and how people didn't see any problem or the double standard with making fun of Justin for not being as muscular as it was portrayed. It's just so fucking solipsistic, and like how is there this inability to kind of universalize or to kind of zoom out and see the bigger picture? I see this happening all the time in terms of, like, don't you ever consider how this might be happening to women, to men as well? Like, just zoom out a little bit. It's so frustrating.
Well, no, they know, I think, because they have to actually strip the male victims out and say that this happens to women because they're women. Otherwise, it's useless to turn a profit or convince people to give up their rights in order to make sure it blah, 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 end the war against women. Therefore, you have to give up your basic human rights because women are in danger. Human rights make women in danger, like freedom of speech and association. That puts women in danger. Like it doesn't, like, this narrative doesn't work unless you strip male victims, because once you say that both men and women are victims of something, people stop giving a shit. It's some sort of like switch in the human brain, and you have to make it so that women are sole victims. If it's both men and women, people stop caring. And
Yeah, women and children, the traditional triggers for basically giving up almost all your rights and all your freedoms is just to protect the women or the children.
yeah, and it's sort of depressing. But I mean, what they're doing is that they have an agenda, and what their agenda is they want to strip away all of those inconvenient freedoms that people have, and they want to do it by using the most effective weapon throughout history to get people to do shit that's appalling and abhorrent, and that is, the women's are in danger. Anyway. Okay, so let's go through one of their little infographics. Forms of violence, online harassment, from abusive SMS messages to tracking movement through geolocation. 2. Intimate partner violence, for example, threats of disclosure of intimate communications or revenge porn. 3. Culturally justified violence, from forwarding a sexist joke to sharing a Facebook group that promotes rape. 4. Sexual assault. Technology is used to lure women into situations that can result in rape or other forms of physical violence. And of course, this all just exclusively happens to women. Oh, get this. The UN estimates 95% of all aggressive and denigrating behavior on online spaces is aimed at women. No citation.
No citation. You know, I have, like, if a friend of mine said this the other day, if there's no citation, it's your fucking opinion. So you can go shove it up your ass.
Yeah, that's probably some pretty good advice. There is absolutely no citation to that. I wonder where it comes from. I wonder if it's the UN report citing itself. Oh, we just decided. We did an informal porn. We did an informal poll. We did words no good today. We did an informal poll of the ficus plant in the office, and we found it blah blah blah. No, it's like this is pulled out of their ass, guaranteed.
Oh yeah, you and I can decide that we want to expose some pandemic going on. Like. Every woman out there is like called some horrible name at 9 a.m. every morning, something weird, and if you and I use the right fucked up methodology, we can find whatever we want, really. That's the beauty of advocacy data.
Yeah, well, the thing is that what really gets me is they're creating these inflated statistics and developing this culture of fear around women. And nobody ever calls them out on that shit. It's like, no, that's okay. Having women live in fear, having women think that they're uniquely victims of shit, that's okay. We can ruin women's
livelihood.
Not livelihood, but like their living standard, not living standard, their quality of life. We ruin women's quality of life to maintain our narrative because that's all they're fucking good for. And, I know that men are they definitely are victims of all this shit because nobody recognizes that they're victims of anything. Because everybody's racing to use women as poster children for their fucking causes to make money or to justify atrocities. And they just do it because it works. Anyway. UN Women's... God, these names. UN Women's Fumzil Mlambo.
Do you want me to say it? Would you like?
Please. Yes, please.
It's Pumzile Mlambo Nguka.
Okay.
It's
right.
I assume an African woman.
I don't mean to try to be insulting or pretend. I'm not actually trying to mispronounce her name. I just cannot pronounce that. She says, online violence has subverted the original positive promise of the Internet's freedoms, and in too many circumstances it has made a chilling space that permits anonymous cruelty and facilitates harmful acts towards women and girls. If you are going to allow every person to have a platform, some people are going to be assholes. So what's your proposal? Take away the platform? That's what they're proposing. And boy, howdy, doesn't this fall in line with a lot of corporate and government agendas? Let's take away.
These people, this is the problem with thinking, you know, utopian, in like utopian terms. Like, you have, that, like there exists such a thing as a solution, which there really doesn't. There are only such things as trade-offs. So you have to, every time you pose some kind of a way of solving a problem, you have to ask, you know, compared to what? But these people never asked, you know, compared to what? What are you sacrificing? You know, what are the ramifications of what you're doing? And yeah, this is kind of scary.
Well, what would be the solution? Like, the only solution that you could possibly entertain would be to stop people being able to speak their mind on the internet.
Complete freedom online is the best trade-off in terms of speech. It really is. They have to realize that.
Well, they don't realize that.
Every solution, quote-unquote solution that they pose, when you ask yourself, you know, what are your evidence that this is going to work? You know, compared to what? You know, what is like, how is this going to make it better? You know, what do you compare this with? It doesn't hold up. It doesn't. It just, there's no way that their solutions hold up when you ask these questions. But they don't ask themselves these questions because it's just this hysteria of, oh, the women swoon.
Well, here's the thing. Like, right now what we have is a situation where anyone can speak their mind. So any person who was institutionally disadvantaged or unable to speak their mind now can. They're getting more and more able to speak their mind. And these are the people who are wanting now to step up and say to the institutions, that's not fair to women and girls. That everyone, every marginalized and disenfranchised person is gaining greater and greater access to having a platform on the web. And that's a problem for these people. And the real question is, who are they advocating for? Because they're going to silence them. Yeah, sure. Giving everyone a platform is going to give a platform to assholes and bitches and cunts and dicks. That is the trade-off. But who does it advantage to take away that platform, to control it, and to prevent, to essentially make it so that they create a filter for speech, acceptable speech on the internet. And that filter is going to be cast wider and wider and wider. Maybe in the beginning it'll be sexist insults as they define them. Maybe it'll be threatoids like, I wish you'd get raped, says the most passive-aggressive non-rapist in history, or shit like that. But then they'll cast it wider and wider and say certain ideologies shouldn't be spoken of. They're anti-woman.
Oh yeah, the thing is, as soon as you pose make the proposition that, you know, certain things shouldn't be able to be said online, you know, certain things are just a no-go. Okay, who decides that? Because as soon as you say that, someone needs to make the decision of who says what and who doesn't. And then right there you have an authority. Right there you have, in this case, in terms of speech, you have some kind of ideological authority who decides what should be said, what shouldn't be said.
And all that will always privilege the people who have the greater amount of power and control, because they will be the ones making the decisions. Well, by definition, once you give someone the power to control other people's speech, they have the power to control other people's speech. All right. Okay, so 2 high-profile victims of revenge porn. Paris Hilton and some other chick. Digital gender violence is no longer a first world problem, technology experts say, as it seamlessly follows the global spread of mobile devices and the internet. Neither is it one that's easy to tackle, since digital technologies are double-edged swords. They can someone needed to proofread this fucking article. They can also make women feel safer and more independent. They can make women feel safer and more independent. I swear to God, I'm not screwing up. It is in the actual article, this ridiculous typo.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, digital technologies. Okay, so why is everything determined by how it makes women feel? Everything. We can't just.
Well, can I say something on the use of the word violence? And we all know this is completely misused, but digital gender violence, digital violence, you know, like according to the World Health Organization, violence is the intentional use of physical force or power. So gender violence is in that sense, you know, oxymoronic in a sense. And very moronic, for sure.
Yeah, no, it is. They are trying to creep the scope, and they're doing it for a very specific reason. Because they have a bug up their ass about the fact that the internet gives a platform to people they don't like talking back.
Oh, I feel like it's also such pandering to the fad. There's recently, especially in the past 5 years, but it's been brewing for a while, but in the past 5 years especially, everybody's clickbaiting women this, women that. It's like been the hottest topic. He for she was a thing. You and women is a thing. And this is coming from BBC, from what I understand in UK and the BBC circles. There is a lot of in fact, I believe it was BBC that was going to start taking away bonuses from executives who did not have a certain amount of representation in their shows. So they were like really coming down hard on having an affirmative action type of situation that favored women mainly and minorities. But this women thing is a fad, and this whole article is basically pandering entirely to the clickbait of women are going to click on this because that's a hot topic to talk about. It's creeped from the back alleys of the internet, Tumblr, etc., and has now risen to MSNBC with the Sarkeesian thing, now BBC, and then the silver screen soon with the Crash Override movie. So it's starting to become a bigger and bigger fad. More and more people are getting involved in it. And they know this will generate views. They are catering to women entirely. Women make up half of the population of the United States and most other countries, or the world in general. Women now are on the rise in terms of not just their jobs, but how much money they make. There's more and more statistics, even TED talks about how women are actually earning more than men. So this whole wage gap is back that up for a second. So women and women power and catering to women is on the rise because people are aware on some level that it's women who hold the wallets in the family a lot of times. That's kind of part of the culture. We went through all these commercials where the fathers were useless idiots and the mom knew best. So that's kind of an established thing in apparently Western American culture for sure. So they look at this. They even grabbed Paris Hilton from like how many years ago? 15 years ago, her sex tape came out, and it's one of the known ways for celebrities to become more famous is to release a leaked sex tape. But they're grabbing this thing because they had no other examples and focusing on Jennifer Lawrence and not mentioning the fact that there were also a bunch of other people who got their photos leaked. But because Jennifer Lawrence made a feminist statement once, they're like dragging in Paris now, something that had nothing to do with actually having it leaked or stolen because people thought that Paris was, a terrible feminist icon or something. You know what I mean? Like, people gave her crap for being a fake celebrity, but it was never like because she's a woman. And now they're dragging her into this to make a positive and to fluff up their article so that women will read it and be like, yeah, this is a terrible disgrace against women. But it's entirely pandering, and it's so obvious that they're just trying to go for the clickbait of feminism and pro-women everything. It's kind of like sickly sweet at this point. It's like, guys, if you really want to empower women, how about you talk about something real, not this pointless shit where it's like so transparent that you're full of it.
You can't empower anyone. All you can do is say, hey, lady, if you don't suck it up, you're a coward. And that kind of, holding women to a standard of acceptable adult behavior is what will achieve what ultimately will empower them, because they'll have to actually pull up their shorts and do it. And personally, I don't get it, because to me, it's just disgusting to be put on display as a victim.
It's like
when I don't perceive that I am.
Yeah, it's like being taken out of the driver's seat.
Yes, And it's like they're celebrating how they're being acted upon, how they're weak and useless, how they does it give them a sense of value? Like women who I don't know, maybe send us an email, explain this. Girl, if you're a woman listening to this and you read this article and you don't feel like, oh God, like you don't feel like me, and I assume Theron and Anna are in the same boat. You read this shit and you're like, oh my fucking God.
I feel punched in the ovaries by that article. Like, it straight up is dewomanizing a lot of things about me. It's like anti-sex traffickers who have issue with healthy prostitutes or people who have organized, sex work or things like that. It's like, you are completely limiting somebody's choice of lifestyle and income where they're happy and healthy and nothing is being violated, and you're completely taking away their agency 100% because you know better because they're women and they're abused. How are you not the abuser of them at that point when you push and peddle ideas like that?
Well, that's... Theron, I can hear you probably want to get in there, so...
Well, no, I kind of wanted to switch gears, so you go, Alison, and then I'll make my point.
Okay, well, it's just, I don't get it. And it was the same thing that was happening at the panel in the Calgary panel, which is one of the first times that I've been in physical contact with women who do this, or just within the same room. It's like they're creating out of the most innocuous shit. They're spinning these tales of horror, and just like, oh my God, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And it's like, what is this? Why would you want to brag about being incapable? Why would you want to brag about being laid low by minor social awkwardness? Why would you want to brag about this?
Well, I think it must have to do with what the values that we have come to uphold in today's society. If it gains you some kind of points to kind of show how vulnerable and how incapable you are, that says a lot about what our society deems valuable in terms of virtue. I'll just leave that there. But isn't it fucked up how this article and many of these articles are basically funded by the taxpayers of the citizens and residents of the UK? Like, this is BBC. Like, that's just so fucked up.
Well, I guess every era had its regressive female role that it expected women to occupy, and this era seems to really fucking love the victim role. Victim, 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 victim. All right.
But I feel like in today's society, you get points if you act like if anyone except for men act like a victim, if you're a minority in terms of if you're a person of color, if you're trans, if you're gay or queer, if you act like a victim, there's some kind of a value that you get out of it. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, there is definitely, the people get shit for being a victim, but at the same time, you have to be a victim. Like, you have to occupy that role. Everyone humiliating role.
Everyone except for men, because they're the ones who are in the driver's seat, right? So they can't be a victim. You can't have a victim in the driver's seat.
No, well, but the thing is, I don't even want. Even though I talk about men's issues, I wouldn't want to promote a victim identity for men. I just want them to recognize that they can be vulnerable to things. Just recognize. It doesn't mean men aren't in-class victim. It just means that they can be victims. So it's a big difference. I don't want. It's like let's just grow the fuck up. Anyway. So, digital pandemic, with 1 in every 3 women a victim. The World Health Organization considers violence against women a, quote, global health problem of epidemic proportion, ranging from domestic abuse to street harassment to sex trafficking, rape, and femicide. Street harassment. Okay. Social media has fueled this pandemic. Say, okay, what? How has it fueled this pandemic? How has it caused domestic abuse? How has it caused sex trafficking? At best, it could maybe facilitate or be an instrument, but how has it fueled it? How has it fueled rape? Are people raping now? Okay, what, that doesn't even fucking make sense. Rape has gone down. Murder has gone down. Crime has gone down since like the 80s. What the fuck? Where are they?
It's the ball of the mind, you understand? They're not thinking that like women need to just be given everything while men sit in the corner and like wait to be used. However, it's not the woman's world yet. I mean, so until
It's
then,
not the women's world until all men are gone or something.
well, there was a Vice, oh, God bless them. They chose their name very wisely because they're like a terrible, terrible organization. But they had an interview that they didn't challenge this woman's perspective at all. They just showcased it. And she was talking about how, yeah, she like can have men like out on a field somewhere, you know, like being workhorses and used for sperm whenever, you know, needed to reproduce. But other than that, that's pretty much where they stay, and that would be good. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that they just cited the World Health Organization, and didn't I just like read the definition of violence as according to the World Health Organization, and how you cannot say that violence can occur online, you know, according to the organization that you just cited. And I still have to see the research or studies that correlate, you know, online negativity, online harassment, or whatever with real life violence. That somehow the negativity or the dark side of the internet translates directly into harassment, real street harassment, sex trafficking, rape, and femicide. I still have to see that. And also this whole femicide thing. Yeah, genocide basically means androcide, because men are the majority victims of
By
of
vast margins, they're the majority
vast,
victims of genocide.
yes.
So
it's
essentially what they're doing is they're saying because women are like, I don't know, 5% the victims of this kind of genocidal shit, that when someone gets it in their head to kill a group of people, they start with the men. And they usually don't, they start and end with the men. And for some reason, that means we need to focus on women as victims. I mean, why would women want to embrace victimhood when it's not true?
The number of women killed by that is, I mean, that's the only way in which women could be more victims of this. Like, you guys won. But I mean, obviously, whenever you see things like that, it's a pretext. It's always, if it's that glaringly obvious that there is no problem and they're saying there is one, they're basically right now creating, like Theron was saying, show me the correlation between this online abuse or work and then how it actually translates to a threat. Because we know that in cases of all of the three main women harassed by gamers thing, none of those threats were ever legitimate or ever correlated or related or ever anything physical ever freaking happened. Nothing happened to them ever physically. They received online criticism, the end. But now this article and others are trying to create a new sphere of influence, like I guess in the emotions, the mind, the whatever, where it's like that's a new kind of harassment. It's like cyberbullying, right? And the best Twitter response to this is like, dude, what the fuck? You can just, how do you get Twitter bullied? Just close the lid, just walk away. Like, what? So that's part of, you can limit your exposure to criticism. Don't read the comments. It's one of the things that artists and creators, Amanda Palmer and all the other ones, always, the explosive public figures, they know you don't read the comments ever, because there's going to be so many mean fucking people and assholes telling you to shove a razor blade up your butt. Like, it's ridiculous. But because they wanting to have an effect on the real world in terms of getting more money or bending rules in their own way, they're creating this sphere of influence that women are being damaged in this ephemeral, you can't really tell what way, but she says she's a victim. She says it's terrible, so we need to believe her and give her stuff. That's basically what they're trying to make happen. It's like, I understand, like, when you have a bunch of snuff gifs or like brutal images as a way of flooding in your timeline, as some people from like 4chan or 9gag, whatever, they do that sometimes. They will flood your timeline with a bunch of gory pictures or some like obscene porn, gay porn, or whatever that's supposed to be racy. And it's like, okay, dude, like, cut it out. This is stupid. Don't do that. But that's just one of the risks. That's like you can go out in the street and somebody will be urinating on the side of the wall. That's just going to fucking happen when you're around people. So they're trying to take things like that and wring out control, pointing at all those things and being like, this violates me as a person. It's like, no, it sucks, but you get the fuck over it because that's part of being a human. We tolerate each other.
Yeah. All right. Let's. I'm gonna read quite a bit. Because the next section is there's also examples of how technology and social networking can work as allies against gender-related violence. What the hell is gender-related violence? In Argentina, the hashtag I'm not even going to say not one less was coined earlier this year to reject femicides that go unpunished in the country. It has been established as an ongoing slogan for cyber activism against domestic violence. So I'm guessing that the not one less is not one less than all. You know, like all the male violence that, you know, or the male victims, they can go hang, but as long as the focus is completely and utterly on women. In Pakistan, Bites for All, or Aware Girl, has been hailed as an effective attempt to fight gender-specific violence. It uses digital storytelling to engage teenage girls and teach them about their rights. I don't know if Pakistan is similar to India, but violence is epidemic against Indian boys, including sexual violence. So, and I've learned through my travels that actually sexual violence is pretty epidemic in the Middle East against boys. So that, all right, gender-specific violence. What do you mean exactly? In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the app Medicapt is being piloted to allow users to collect, share, and preserve forensic evidence of sexual violence. Oh, okay, here's another one. The Democratic Republic of the Congo. They did a study of rape victims from war rape in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They found that 23% of men, and I believe something like 40 or something, between 30 and 40% of women had been raped. But it is a place where, you know, social services are breaking down. And I might also add that a lot of the men's stories end with, and then they tried to cut my head open with a machete and rolled me into a ditch. But I survived. So 23%, that's of the guys who survived or who are still alive. A lot of male rape victims are uncounted because they're also murder victims, which isn't the same with women. But from the statistics from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, not only are men significant numbers of the people who are victims of rape, women who are victims of rape report that 40% of their aggressors were female. I'm guessing that app probably has nothing to do with that, or they're not going to acknowledge that in this. And then in India, human rights organizations are developing video games to engage men in preventing violence as well as getting women to speak up under hashtags such as #RingTheBell. A similar project through video blogs is in place in Nicaragua. Again, I spoke about the epidemic of sexual and physical violence towards Indian boys, but who gives a shit, right? Who gives a shit? We got victims with vaginas in the house, and that needs to suck the air out of everything.
Will the real victims please stand up?
Yeah, Take Back the Tech was launched in 2006 by a group of young women in Southeast Asia in response to an increasing body of evidence that mobile phones and geolocation software were used for physically violent ends. Okay, I'd like to see that increasing body of evidence. Every year on 25th November, they put out a call for 16 days of activism against gender violence. What does gender violence mean? Do you mean that, the acceptable victims of violence are men? Because that's what it's sounding like. You don't care about men as victims. Are they the ones, are men and boys, are they supposed to be where violence is disposed of? Are they like the violence garburator? They're the appropriate victims, the appropriate targets of violence as men and boys. That's what this fucking campaign is saying. And constantly. All of these campaigns. Every single fucking one of them. What they mean is this violence was directed at a woman when it should have been directed at a man.
Yes, basically trying to uphold the status quo, which is so funny.
Yeah.
Feminism trying to uphold the status quo? Oh, I thought you guys were trying to get rid of the status quo. Okay.
Who would think that actually challenging the notion that women are uniquely victims, uniquely damsels relative to men might actually be more progressive in terms of gender? But, whatever. Let's continue doing exactly what we've done forever. The internet is available to everyone, and so is its violence. The perpetrators are no longer limited by geographic location or physical boundaries, says Baroness Patricia Scotland, former UK Attorney General and founder of the Corporate Alliance Against Domestic Violence. But violent online behavior ranges from virtual harassment and public shaming to the desire to inflict physical harm. And the internet may become a tool to turn virtual violence real.
Citation, please.
Yes.
There's not a single hyperlink on this article, and it's starting to get annoying. You know, so far I've only heard opinions. They're just opinions.
Okay, and here's a quote. Quote, only 40 years ago, sexual harassment and domestic violence were viewed as normal. Well, guess what? They are still viewed as normal as long as the victim is a man and the perpetrator is a woman. Today, we see the same pattern of subordination in cyberspace. Cyber harassment is seen as trivial. Well, if you're a man, it's seen as trivial. You know, suck it up, be a man. You know, but if you're a woman, apparently you can make an entire fucking career out of it, being a victim of it. Danielle Citron, author of Hate Crimes in Cyberspace.
But I don't know. Comparatively, online harassment is kind of, I don't know. Comparatively, it is a little bit trivial, because you can block people. You can.
It is trivial.
I can block someone on every single one of my social media and not have to worry about him or her ever again. Not only that, but it has no consequence on my physical being. It does not make me feel unsafe in the actual world. Like, it is kind of trivial comparatively. Sorry to say it.
It is trivial.
This is white woman problems.
Yeah, well, this is like, it's beyond that. It's people who can afford a damn cell phone problems. Look, if you can turn it off and walk away from it, if you decide how long you have to engage in it, you are the one who is deciding to harass yourself. Because if you can walk away, if you can turn it off, if you can mute, if you can ban, if you can block, if you can just not look at the fucking comments, it's your choice to do so. This is like a war against women's own choices. I mean, you can't choose not to be raped in the real world. I mean, you can fight back. You can't choose not to be murdered. You can't choose not to be beaten in a dark alley. And you don't get to choose when the encounter begins or ends. But you get to choose when the cyber encounter begins and ends. Because you can turn off Twitter, or block, or mute, or ban. And these are effective tools. Because they give the person who is being exposed to the meanness on the internet, they give them the ability to decide when the encounter begins and when it ends. And that's the only ability that they need, and they have it, and it's done. It is trivial. Fucking shut up. Okay, a survey by the Washington-based National Network to End Domestic Violence found 89% of victims in domestic violence program reported some form of abuse through technologies, often across multiple platforms. Well, yeah, your abuser calls you up and yells at you on a fucking telephone. Or through an iPhone. Like, what the fuck? This is fatuous. This doesn't mean that the technology caused the abuse. It's just the technology is a tool of someone who already wanted to abuse someone. Oh, God. Cao Feng Li says, intimidation, threats, and access of information about victims aren't new tactics within the context of domestic violence, but the use of technology means that the harassment and abuse can be much more invasive, intensive, and traumatizing.
No, it can't. We just established that.
No, it can't. You can turn it off. You can walk away. You can block. You can ban.
He's in my phone, and I can't be parted from my phone for like more than half a second, and he's in my phone. Now my feels.
But it doesn't, like, you don't have to. Isn't there a way to just ignore people who text? Like, you don't just delete it?
Not if you're a drama queen. Nope.
Okay, no pranks. University of Maryland's Professor Danielle Citron, author of Hate Crimes in Cyberspace, charted the popular response to internet death and rape threats and found that the disseminated messages are sometimes dismissed as so-called harmless locker room talk or juvenile pranks. You know what? I don't like this harmless locker room talk because this sort of genderizes this. And it's often not. A lot of the cyberbullying that people see, but still, people can stop it, is also done by women. So they do their share, if not more. So locker room talk. How about
Hair salon talk?
hair salon talk? Yeah.
Oh, teenage girls are some of the most vicious bullies, both sometimes in person and definitely online.
Oh
All
yeah, and
right.
it's totally underhanded and insidious. Like, uh, they probably won't. Female gendered kind of bullying or harassment online would probably not even happen directly. They'll probably just, spread messages without you even knowing it. Next thing you know, everyone thinks that you have a tiny dick or whatever.
Violence. This is another infographic thing. Violence against women. 1 in 3 women worldwide experience some form of violence in their lifetime. Well, that's really fucking interesting because worldwide, men are 3 times more likely to die violently. So, you know what? I'm just going to make some shit up. That would suggest 1 in 1 men. Every single goddamn man you look at, a guy walks down the street, he's experienced violence. Your husband's experienced violence. Your sons have experienced violence. Your brothers have experienced violence. Your male friends have experienced violence. Every single goddamn one of them has experienced violence. But only 1 in 3 women have. Well, they get off lightly. I guess. I guess our society and all societies around the world actually protect women from violence. Just like we see a fucking article that's all about protecting women from violence, we never see the reverse for men. Has anyone ever seen an article saying we need to protect the men from violence? Ever? Silence. Or sure, never? Am I
Nope,
stalking it?
never.
Like, 73% of women who are online have experienced gender-related violence. But what the fuck does gender-related violence mean? 1 in 5 women feel that 1 in 5 feel the internet is inappropriate for them. Well, 1
That's
in
a
5
bald-faced lie.
1 in 5 church-going ladies feels that the library is a den of sin. Who the fuck gives a shit? The internet is not supposed to massage your feels. And they have this picture of a woman holding up a sign with a woman with a black eye saying, "What shocks you more? The woman with the black eye, the fact that she's smirking? I don't know, is she a prize fighter or some shit? I don't know, whatever." 27 times, women are 27
That's
times more.
sorry,
No,
sorry, Alison.
dude, this has to be the worst one. This has to, I'm sorry, I know, I'm running at the mouth. 27 women are 27 times more likely to be abused online than men. This is the Association for Progressive Communication, UN Broadband Commission for Digital Development. This is the crap commission or crap document that everybody found so many. It was like Swiss. It was like a fucking sieve. It had so many fucking holes in it. They're citing that document. It's 27 times? Like, did you just make that fucking? Yes, they did. What am I saying? They just made it up. Well, why'd go for 27? Why not 3,000, 30 billion million times? They're even like alien women are more likely to be abused online than human men. Like people in Alpha Centauri, they're also if they have women, if they have females, they're every female in ever existed.
Yeah, the women out in orbit, maintaining the satellites and keeping up the satellites, they're even more likely to be abused.
Oh
Just
my
all of
God.
them. Every single
Where
female
do you think
entity.
where do you think they got the 27 times more likely to be abused online than
Planets
men?
planets with female names are more likely to be abused.
That's right. We're planning to colonize Venus and then not Mars. Wait, we are colonizing. No, whatever. So where do you guys think that they got the 27 times more likely? Like, did they just fucking throw a dart at a calendar or something? Like, where did they get this number?
They weaseled it. It's called advocacy data. You have a few serious questions amidst like a really vague, um, like specious questions that basically give you a yes every single time. Um, I don't know. I read the book Who Stole Feminism by Christina Hoff Sommers, and she did a lot of kind of unpacking the kind of research methodology that kind of these kind of advocates use. And it's basically that. It's methodologically completely flawed. And you can, as I said earlier, you can get whatever the fuck you want if you just rig your study correctly, and then you can declare an epidemic. So.
Well, I know. I remember looking through that broadband commission document, and nothing supported any of their assertions. 27 times, like they used a prime number. Anyway, and the report button social networking sites have introduced to help users flag up abuses, just a virtual band-aid for a potentially dangerous real-world problem, she adds. What? So the ability to decide when the encounter begins and ends isn't good enough. I mean, could you imagine if you gave that ability to all of the people, men and women, men in particular, who are going to be subject to being violently raped or mugged or murdered? I mean, no, you give them a button that says, here, you can press this button and the encounter ends whenever you want. Before it even begins. You can press this button. Do you think how grateful they would be? You just give that button to every potential victim of a mugging or a murder or a rape. Just press it whenever you want it to stop.
That's basically what, that's what the internet is. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Just press it when you want it to stop. But that's not good enough. We have to waste time with people who cannot do that on the internet. And take time away from people who cannot stop these encounters, cannot stop these violent encounters because they're victims of real-world crimes. We've got to take time away from the people that could potentially prevent or protect them.
Time and resources.
And give it to people who cannot hit the button on the internet. Professor Sitton has lobbied for laws in the U.S. to criminalize revenge porn, but she encounters powerful critics who argue such legislation would infringe on freedom of speech. Yeah, like us! Hit the button. You don't like the encounter? End it. A recent UN study asked industry players such as internet service providers, mobile phone companies, social networking sites, gaming sites, and websites to play the part of digital gatekeepers. So essentially getting rid of common carrier, all those protections. So essentially shutting down the net as we know it. All of the freedom, basically the only real space that's ever been a truly free and potentially laissez-faire market system. Let's just all shut it down because women's fifis. Okay, I'm gonna step down a bit because you guys have gotten quiet and I'm afraid I've intimidated you into silence.
Never.
All right.
I feel subjugated.
I subjugated you with my rar. Okay, do you want me to finish this or do you have a comment? Okay, I'll take your silence as no.
That'll be a no, yes.
Okay, so essentially they want to shut down the internet because of women's fifis. Fucking, you know what, bitches? Suck it up. Suck it up. We have a chance at freedom. We have a chance to have the people who are marginalized and silenced by the powers that be actually have a platform for the first time in a long time, ever maybe. They actually have a platform to almost speak on equal terms. And you want to take that away. What a privileged bunch of cunts. Okay, legal punishment. 1 in 5 female internet users live in countries where gender-related online abuse is unlikely to be punished. What does that even mean? 74% of countries fail to take appropriate action through courts and law enforcement agents because the victim, quote-unquote victim, has a button to end the fucking encounter at any point in time. There's something like a 3 punches rule. Someone gets 3 punches, and if you punch back after the 3rd punch or within the first 3 punches, it's considered mutual. You don't press the fucking button, ladies. You have decided to continue the encounter. This is now consensual. And that is not abusive. You have decided to allow this to continue. And I've seen a lot of the women who complain about this, their behavior. Believe me, they're no peach either. 65% of female victims prefer not to report cyber violence for fear of social repercussions. What? Social repercussions. Being able to speak at the UN? Having your patron flooded with goddamn white knight dollars? The report says tech companies need to explicitly recognize cyber violence against women and girls as unlawful behavior and provide relief to victims and survivors. But the picture is bleak so far. Statistics reveal that 1 in 5 female internet users live in countries where gender violence is unlikely to be legally punished. And the button that allows them to stop the encounter whenever they want, it's too much responsibility for their fragile. You know what? This is an argument for why women need to go back to being in harems, oiled down by eunuchs. This is an argument for that, ladies. This is an argument for why you need a male chaperone who will tell you what you can look at on the internet. Oh, wait, that's what you're arguing for. You're arguing that we should create these corporate security bodies, and I assume they're going to be staffed by men because, God forbid, women look at this horrible material. And then, so all these internet control bodies are going to be staffed by men protecting you from shit. You're in a fucking digital harem. Thank you, idiot. Okay, we're at the end of it.
It's Victorian times, I tell you.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to start in? Do you guys have anything to say?
I just find it absolutely amazing, the power that lies within that guilt that you can boil up in someone by saying, wake up, look how you're treating your woman, look how you're letting other people get away with treating our women. You know, like, for pretty much most of history, women's safety and physical well-being has been put at the forefront of any consideration or any decision being made. And yet we have to issue a wake-up call today about violence against women as though we don't know, as though even though women are the least likely people, even after children the least likely to be victims of violence, there's still something wrong. There's still this huge problem. There's this huge thing. There's this huge something that's being overlooked that we need to wake up from. It's amazing. It's really fucking amazing.
Can I make a proposal? Until every single child who is right now a victim of sexual violence or physical violence or verbal abuse, until every single child is taken care of, don't fucking talk about the women. Adult women can fend for their fucking selves. Take care of the children first, not women. At some point, there has to be a dividing line where women are expected to maintain the same kind of level of adult self-reliance and responsibility as a man. If we would have said to a man, suck it up, buttercup, which is why they don't complain and why they learn to deal with this shit, then we should say it to a woman. She wants to be called a woman. Woman refers to adult, human, female. She wants to have that title afforded her, then she better start sucking it up and being an adult. And these women need to start turning around and saying, hey, no, children come first. First. Not until not one less. Well, we shouldn't be we shouldn't even be dealing with the femicides in Argentina until all of the murders of children are investigated. And I guarantee there are plenty that aren't.
Yeah, fuck this women and children first. It's children first, adults second, for fuck's sake.
Or everybody, or we just treat all human beings equally. That would be nice too. Anyway, okay, let's do the mailbag, as it were. So the first stuff is just thanks. So I'm just going to go through that really quickly because I know everybody listening and my co-hosts are probably loving the sound of my voice right now. Okay, so Carlton M. writes, I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you collectively do and all the shitstorm you must inevitably go through to even voice the opinions that you do. I love all of your content and try to support you as many ways as I can. Sadly, I'm a poor student and can't help out with the Patreon, so I just wanted to leave a kind little message saying how important I consider the Badger Brigade to be. I live in the UK, and without going into too much crybabying, I have to deal with and had to deal with quite severe depression and general mental health issues that society doesn't seem to really care about. And I can't help but feel extreme pessimism at the current status quo of society. Even small things like my university have a policy that all ground floor apartments must be occupied by male students for female safety. And you are the light in the dark political landscape. Anyway, without getting too carried away, I just want to express a love. And on a side note, I wonder if you as individuals have public Twitter accounts that I can follow. Thank you for your work. What do you guys want to give out your public Twitter accounts? I'll give out mine. It's just Typhon Blue, at Typhon Blue. Go ahead, Anna. Pipe. Or are you eating vegan? Okay.
I'll give mine. It's just at Theron Meyer, TheronMeyer. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think Anna Cherry is at Anna Cherry on top. So there you go. Those are our personal individual accounts. I believe Karen is at Girl Writes What, and Hannah is at Hannah Wallen or Breaking the Glasses. I'm not quite sure.
I'm pretty sure hers, the one she uses most frequently is Onera's Grip.
Oh God, that name.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah,
it's like one Irian's Grip. I don't know.
I know it's like her Twitter handle is her Twitter and Reddit handles are incomprehensible, but yeah, you can go and follow us on Twitter. But I wanted to mention something. People recognize that this kind of demonization narrative, when it's directed at black men, is a form of society-wide harassment, or Jewish men or any marginalized group of men. They recognize that seeing them as dangerous is a form of society-wide harassment, and yet we direct this at men, and we don't care. I mean, we're not even talking about isolated people on the internet being bitchy towards female celebrities. This is government-funded campaigns of harassment towards men for shit like manspreading, which apparently 1,500 men have been arrested for, and then blaming men for things like rape and domestic violence, making boys stand up and pledge oaths not to hurt women and girls. Seriously. This is a society-wide campaign of harassment that is paid for by our governments. It's fucking paid. This is like Jim Crow shit. And we don't even see it as such. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out. Eric writes, "Greeting, fellow men's rights audience of the Honey Badger Brigade. I invite you to shed a little coin to support the brigade. Here is why. Not only is the interactive content they produce soothing, they have this place where diverse people talk about everything. Come join the Badtrons. I find it therapeutic." See you there, Eric. Okay, what Eric is referring to is that patrons, and pretty soon I'm going to be putting up subscriptions on our feedthebadger.com site. You can buy a subscription to or become a patron and take part in a Skype chat, which is pretty much ongoing, so you can sort of see the nerve center of the Badger universe. And we also have Google Hangouts after shows where you can talk to us live. And you can go to Patreon if you're interested and take a look at that. And once again, I'll probably talk about the subscriptions in a later show. I haven't set them up yet. I'm in the process of trying to set up a store, because so many people have asked me, so I feel like I have to do it. It's not fun work, but you know, we should probably have a store. Anyway, so I'm in the process of setting that up. If you're interested in taking part in the Skype chat, you can become a patron. Patron is per episode pledges, so consider that. They do allow you to do a monthly max. So if you do about $30 a month, with like a $5 per episode. So that's like for 6 episodes, you get access to the Skype chat. The Skype chat is high volume. You get a lot of content, and you get to get previews of stuff that's going up, and you also get to talk to us. I'm the one who mostly does a lot of the Skype chatting. The others sort of pop in here and there. Anyway, a lot of people in the Skype chat say that they find it very therapeutic to be able to talk to people who are sympathetic to their issues. So that's something to consider. Michael writes, "Hello, Badgers. I just wanted to share my support for what your guys are doing. I'm afraid my hands are tied. I can't be openly activist and support as I would like to be on social media for fear of being virtually castrated by the usual suspects. Even though I'm a nobody with very few Facebook and Twitter followers, I'd rather not draw the eye of Sauron's attention and force him to look in my direction. Anyway, please don't stop fighting. To me, it feels like you're one of the very few beacons of sanity left in all this rising politically correct internet mess. So thank you all, and please keep it up, Mitchell. Here's another thing. During the Jim Crow era, a lot of black people were afraid of speaking out against the situation because they would lose their job. That's generally a defining feature of being subjugated by a system, is that you rely on it to the point where you can't speak out because you might lose your job. So the fact that feminists can speak out and get a job from speaking out, but men can't speak out because they could lose their job, that should tell you something. All right. I'm just going to check with my co-hosts. Does anybody want to say anything? I've spoken a lot.
I'm good for now.
I'm good. I just thought, Alison, if you're getting tired, I can read some of the mailbag as well.
Oh, sure. That'd actually be great. I would love to be. Yeah. You can. Go ahead.
Okay. Eric writes, hello, Badgers. I'm having a bit of a problem at my workplace that I feel could be a good discussion point on your podcast if you'll have it. I work as a backroom supervisor, primarily tasked with overlooking and managing the unloading of the freight truck. It is difficult work. You are going to be on your feet all day, averaging 20 to 25 miles of walking per day, all the while hauling a lot of freight, from just picking up 10 to 15-pound cases of whatever to then using a pallet jack to pull it all out to the sales floor. It is extinguishing work that is just not for everyone.
Exhausting, probably.
Yes, although, yes, that's not what it says. It says extinguishing.
Yeah, the mailbag is always fun.
I kind of like that, though. Extinguishing work. And yet, due to the harassment policy, the store has to hire just about anyone. According to the policy, you are not allowed to say or make any judgment on just how physically capable of the job a person is. While that might be nice to get in the occasional person who works hard and overcomes their limitations, or just becomes more fit for the job at a later time, more often than not, all it does is put people into the position that they should never have been in the first place. And as a manager of said person, you're not allowed to say anything about it. For example, a while back they had to hire a guy for the back room with only one arm. Yes, he worked hard and moved fast, but there were several things he simply could not do. That would have been fine, but the team has already been working around several other employees that simply could not do the required work due to various physical conditions. But that is just something we are supposed to ignore completely. This is happening constantly, be it people who are well into their 60s being thrown into the back to people who are generally so unfit that putting them into the physically demanding job was blatantly obvious that it was not going to work out. Is it just me, or is this just causing more problems than it solves?
Well, I don't think it's just him. Sounds like his workplace is nuts.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
It's like, yeah, that's a bit. I'm surprised they're not out of business with that kind of those kind of practices.
Also sounds unsafe. Just plain not. It seems like mechanical, and you should have full faculty of all of your four limbs if you're working in anything heavy or mechanical. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know how much other additional advice we can give him, except, yeah, that does sound ridiculous. So do you want to alternate, Theron? I'll consider that a yes.
Yes.
KD has made an inquiry. Hi, Badgers. I have a question about what is called rape shaming. There seems to be two definitions of it. One, rape victims often blame themselves. For example, it's not unusual for victims of child molestation to blame themselves for their trauma, which leads to lifelong feelings of self-inflicted shame. Two, others blame rape victims. In other words, a woman is raped and some guy says, Well, what was she doing down that street dressed like that? From what I understand, the first example I mentioned is all too common. However, in the second situation, I cannot think of any example where a girl or woman has been raped and been blamed for it in any significant way aside from the 3-4 sigma lunatics. In this respect, I think a lot of men try to give women advice in the wake of such horrible things as don't go out alone, carry a gun or some kind of weapon, or bring the dog when you go out, assuming it's an actual dog with a snout and teeth, not a god-awful wind-up toy. I do blame people for creating such horrendous species. So my question is, whose definition of rape shame are we using, and is there a definition that I do not know about? I've never heard of women being shamed by a community for being raped, at least in the U.S. Does it come down to men trying to advise women, and then feminists interpreting that as blame? Thank you for your time. Go Seahawks. Okay. Let's see. I actually don't think. Well, the thing is that the people who talk about blaming victims, blaming rape victims, I actually got into a conversation with one, and I think that his attitude was very typical. I said that there's there were some statistics that I read a way long time ago, and I might not be able to find them again, that said that if a woman fights back, she can most often not end a rape or prevent it from happening. And he said that women shouldn't be told that, because women who don't fight back or who are shocked into submission or whatever might feel ashamed that they didn't fight back and stop it. And I'm like, so you would rather have women be raped than a victim feel ashamed for not fighting back? I mean, because if this is information that could prevent a rape, then there are female rape victims you could prevent becoming female rape victims. But you would rather prevent so-called victim blaming than an actual rape. He had no response to that. And I don't, from our exchange, I don't think he's very different than the usual rape, so-called rape activist. I think that a lot of them would rather a woman be raped than victims be blamed, as they put it. And I think at that point in time, you just have to realize that they are totally fucking morally bankrupt as people, that you just need to back away slowly and say, yeah, you need to you need to be nowhere near rape prevention or any kind of shit like that. So, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing is that a lot of what is considered like self-blame is really quite a natural response to a traumatic experience. And I think Karen has spoken about this on here, and I'm sure some other people have as well. But just considering after having a traumatic experience, it's actually pretty natural to think to yourself, what could I have done differently? What could I do in the future? It's basic problem solving, you know. It's basic like damage control of like, how do I prevent this from happening again? You know, should I next time go down 11th Street instead of 7th Street? Should I next time not wear a mini skirt and 9-inch heels when I walk in that part of town? You know, just things like that. That's very natural thought processes to go through people's heads, and in my opinion, pretty justified. You know, I was mugged once, and the first thing that I thought was, I really shouldn't have been in that part of town. I really shouldn't have been and unprotected and just exposing myself like that, and I should take responsibility for that, because if I can tell myself that a great deal of what happened is because of me, that gives me a lot of power to have that not happen again. And that's actually empowering, not disempowering.
I mean, even if it's a case where you don't actually have any control, even the illusion of having control actually allows you to live your freaking life, because you're not going to spend every single day being raped. You're going to spend most of your life not being raped. And if you can encourage a better quality of life in those days where it's not happening, why would you destroy that? For what? Like, even if you can't stop it, you can't stop it. I mean, even if there's nothing you can do to prevent rape, having the belief that you can do something gives you peace of mind in all of the other times that it's not happening. And why are we willing to sacrifice that for women? Not just women who have been raped, but women who aren't likely to ever be raped, because most women are not going to be raped. So, yeah. Okay. Do you want to
Okay.
go on? Go
Yeah,
on to the next one?
go on to read.
Yes, not the. Skip the next one and go to the one after that.
Okay. So Reed H has made an inquiry. I just thought of something I have to share. Feminist ideology is basically a religion, with its unwavering support of its preconceived conclusions. Feminism is well known for fabricating the problems they purport to solve. Also like a religion, i.e. original sin. So my question is, can feminism invent a problem that's so big that even feminism can't fix it? That's the feminism omnipotence paradox. Just had to share that.
Oh goodness. Well, what do you think, Theron?
I think that's exactly what they try to do, because if they create problems so big that they can't solve, then they'll constantly be asked to solve it, and they won't have to back down and leave the mainstream sphere. So I think a lot of the things are unsolvable. Microaggressions are unsolvable. Getting rid of every single rape that ever exists is completely unsolvable. If in today's society feminists still view women as oppressed, then the oppression of women is completely unsolvable.
Not well, unless they actually force women to do exactly as they want.
Well, at least what they perceive as oppression of women. Do you know what I mean? Like if they can't solve what they deem as oppression today, they never will.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's convenient. That's convenient because if you continue the perception of a problem and market it as you are the solution, then you'll always have a demand, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of that sort of brings me to mind. And this might be slightly tangential. What I proposed is like, if feminism is correct and men throughout history have behaved in this sociopathic way towards women, equivalent to the kind of in-group, out-group dynamics you see with ethnicity, race, class, religion, belief system, the equivalent to that. And that's basically sociopathy. And men have behaved that way towards their wives, their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, in a completely sociopathic way in which they will simply use them to their own benefit. If men have behaved that way, despite having the closest and the most intimate relationship with women as possible, that basically men and women have the most intimate relationship possible compared to any other discernible group. You don't see that with black people or white people. You don't see that with Christians and Muslims. Christians and Muslims don't have to engage in intimate activities to reproduce. Okay, so feminism proposes that all of those intimate relationships that men have shared with women have never created any sort of compassion in men for women, and somehow feminism is going to manage to do that by whining really loudly in a social and political way. Well, no, if feminism's premise is correct, and men have never developed that compassion towards women, then it is completely ineffectual. Whining in public is not going to make men develop compassion for women. And this is completely separate from the situation with black people and white people, because black people and white people haven't had to maintain a sociopathic approach to each other despite having the most intimate relationship on the planet, requiring each other to breed, etc. So it's a completely different scenario. Now, if feminist premises are correct, its methods are completely futile. They'll never appeal to men to actually care about women. But more likely, feminism is simply appealing to something that already exists in men, which is concern for women's safety and protection. In which case, yeah, feminism all the time creates a problem it can't solve. Because by definition, patriarchy is something that feminism could never possibly solve, by their definition. It's by their definition, by the feminist definition, patriarchy is eternal and men hate women.
But
And
just the other day, Lacey Green said in one of her videos where she talked about, the idea of problematization and where everything is problematic and how it's a regular part of doing feminism or whatever. You guys may have covered it, but she basically said that there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like, we are never going to reach a perfect society or solve these problems. So there you go. She admitted it. It's an unsolvable problem, and it's never going to change. But they're always going to problematize it, and they're always going to whine about it. And that way they'll always stay relevant, or at least try.
okay, Anthony B. has made an inquiry. Hi, Honey Badgers. I don't think many women truly understand what it means to be a man, but after listening to you for a while, I realize you do. When women ask me what it is like to be a man, I use a video to explain it. When I've been insulted, denigrated, and had my feelings marginalized by third wave, I turn to this video to remind myself of my value to society. This video makes me cry every time I watch it. I can't help it. It's the true virtue of manhood exemplified. It's the true representation of society's gender role for men. It is our pain, it is our resolve, it is our triumph, and it is our unsung heroism. I'm sharing this with you because everyone deserves to see this, especially men who need a reminder of why they are special. Without any more ado, and he linked us to the YouTube video of The Moth, I believe is the title, by oh goodness. His name is right on the tip of my tongue. He's a comedian who had to essentially perform as a comedian even while his daughter was dying of cancer. And it's Anthony Griffith. So The Moth presents Anthony Griffith, the best of times, the worst of times. And essentially it tells the story of him maintaining his career in comedy while his daughter is dying of cancer. And it is painful, a painful thing to see. But yeah, you're right. Men have a nobility of spirit, a greatness of they're expected to have a greatness of soul that women simply aren't expected to have. And they're expected to have that as a function of earning their title, man. There's an expectation there of courage and self-sacrifice in the face of adversity and keeping strong for your family members. And it's not, you don't see it with women. Women don't have to do anything for their word. It just sort of arrives on them. It just sort of rolls over them like a gentle wave at some point in their life when they biologically become ready. And it's a shame, to be honest. It's a shame that there's so little expected of women. I mean, the biggest thing that feminists expect of women is to always benefit themselves. Hopefully at the expense of men. He for she. Be the recipient of male largesse. That's the feminist role for women. Or be a victim. And to me, it's so amazing that the whole feminist conception of womanhood, general conception of womanhood, is this idea that the worst thing that you can conceive of happening just happens to you. That's the female conception. That's the female experience. It boggles my mind when I think about it. That they worry about rape. They worry about abuse. They worry about things that happen to them. That's what they worry about. That's what women in general worry about, apparently. They're afraid of things happening to them, of violence happening to them, of being a victim of something. That's what they worry about. My God,
that makes me think.
Privileged. No, just let me. How privileged.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm being a loudmouth tonight. How privileged are you that your only concern in life is what happens to you? You don't have any concern for failing the people you love. That's not your responsibility. You don't have to have magnificence of soul. You don't have to worry about being seen as a coward or failure.
No, you're worried that the people you love will fail you, not the other way around.
I mean, how entitled, how privileged that position it is to only be concerned about your own well-being. And again, it's written in the gender role. Women don't have to do a damn thing to earn their word. Men have to do so much to be a man, to be recognized as an adult. Women don't have to do a damn thing but bleed.
Women are born women.
Yeah.
Men have to grow into and prove themselves to be men.
And this guy is right. There is a nobility to men that women simply do not have because they don't have to grow into it. They don't have to develop it. They don't have to establish it. And they aren't tossed aside if they don't get it. If they don't actually grow into that sense of responsibility for others. That's at the very essence of the word man. Anyway. Which
Next
is
one?
Next one, yeah.
Sorry, did you want to say something, Alison?
No, I'm being pushy. Just go ahead.
Okay. So this one is a little bit blocky. So if I mess up, please forgive me.
Do you want me to read it? I can probably get through this maybe a little bit better than you.
Okay, go for it. I'll do the next one then.
Yeah, sure. So Sean, hello, honey badgers. I appreciate what you're doing. I first heard about men's rights activists while watching some no-name social justice film critic claim there was a right-wing back conspiracy. I was confused because I had been following politics since I was 12, and at least at the time, not one Republican or conservative outlet even mentioned men's rights. So I looked to see what all the hubbub was about. First thing I found was Karen's video. I watched and thought, what? That was pretty apolitical. Why is any politician or party talking? She's better at feminism than most actual feminists. And after that, I didn't really think about it until Gamergate happened, when the press claimed Gamergate was a hate group oppressing clickbait journalists. So anyways, you saw the so-called comedy sketch on a late-night show, but what you missed was the interview by Stephen of Senator McCaskill and Senator Klobuchar that I can only describe as nothing less than pro-Clinton, anti-Sanders propaganda. A brief rundown of said interview. The senators complain about the lack of female politicians. The senators scold millennials for supporting Sanders, stating something along the lines of, "We do not feel the burn. The first woman president is far more important. You know who the real outsiders? Women," ending with McCaskill declaring herself a political genius because she funded Todd Atkin in Missouri's Republican primary for the Senate back in 2012. Todd Atkin was her extreme right-wing opponent at that time, and basically she won because her opponent was insane. Although this is nothing new for the Clinton campaign, considering they began an attack on Sanders with that very same Senator McCaskill going home mourning Joe. You know what? I think that's enough to talk about. Okay, this is American politics. Unfortunately, we have a sort of a dearth of Americans because of the fried turkey day that you have, and subsequent ritual slaughter that you have tomorrow in your public spaces. So we're really light on the Americans. So we don't really have a lot of Americans who can talk politics. Theron, did you want to say anything to that?
Well, I find the infighting amongst the Democrats to be rather entertaining. I don't personally like Bernie Sanders myself, or I like Hillary Clinton even less. So I just think it's entertaining from a third person's perspective and from someone who, the election isn't really going to affect me all that much. I just think it's a bit of a mess right now. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It's all political theater. It's pointless. They're not the people who actually rule or make the laws, so who the fuck cares?
Oh,
basically.
We have a troll back in the chat. Aristil Lestigura of the incomprehensible name says self-hating women are the honey boogers. Okay, well you sit and you have an identity that you just attain simply by existing. You set no standards of responsibility for yourself because as a woman, you're completely incapable of actually achieving them, right?
If we're self-hating, you should play this drinking game. Like, anytime we speak about empowerment of women, you should probably take a drink. You might have to go to the hospital after about 30 minutes.
Real empowerment.
Right.
Which is the expectation that women achieve a standard of adult behavior and responsibility, that women stop focusing entirely as if all the world revolves around what happens to them, rather than what they are capable of doing, how they are capable of protecting and providing for others. I see an expanded role for women as people, taking responsibility for society, for their fathers, their brothers, their sons, their husbands, taking a role of strength and protection for men. I see power and strength. That's what I see. If you think that's self-hating, I don't know what to say. Okay, do you want to take the next one, Theron?
Sure. Just give me a second. Okay, so EJ writes, "Hey guys, it's me, EJ from Victoria. Long time no talk. Have you guys done an episode on domestic violence yet? If not, I really would like to hear one. In fact, due to my own experiences, I wonder if you wouldn't mind having me on for it. Share my story and discuss the topic in depth. Also, I'm in the process of writing a new book, this time non-fiction on the positive aspects of masculinity, called The Iron Knight. And in brackets, it's a play on the White Knight while taking care not to become the Black Knight in the process, if you get me. I'd like to start drumming up some hype on it, as I'm scheduled to have it out by June-ish. That's right, I'm asking for some shilling help. Anyway, please let me know, and don't be a stranger, guys."
EJ was the individual who arranged the GG meetup in Victoria. So, hi EJ. No, we haven't forgotten about you. And yes, I read your letter, or actually Theron read your letter. And sure, we'll keep in touch. Yeah, and it probably would be a good idea to do a show on domestic violence as experienced by men. That probably would be good. We should do that sometime. Maybe do it with Tom Golden. All right, I'm going to go to the next letter. Jason T. writes, "Hey ladies, gents, or group identity of your choice. Seats. That would be the group identity that I would choose. That is a group of badgers, by the way. It's called a seat. I'm a relatively new listener, so maybe you've covered this and I missed it, but since it happened to me for the third time, I find myself questioning if it's feminist or if I'm in fact doing something wrong. I speak of the public dressing down for holding the door open for a woman. As I said, this has happened to me 3 times, twice in about 6 years ago, and the third time last week. I see a woman either coming in or out of a public building. As I'm reaching for the door, and I hold the door open for them. I don't do it with a flourish or make a display of it. I tend to do a little more than nod politely. Yet 3 times now I've been yelled at like I'm wearing a I Heart Hitler t-shirt at my local synagogue. In addition to the expected cries about soggy knees and sexism, some of the highlights include being called a caveman, a pig, everything that's wrong with America. The first 2 times were 2 very middle-class looking soccer moms, but the most recent was a blue-haired teenager who looked like she walked out of a Tumblr comment section. Now, as a white middle-class Republican voting man in his mid-30s who believes Stannis Baratheon is the one true king of Westeros, I'm pretty used to being labeled as a villain at this point in time. However, each time this has happened, I've found myself completely dumbstruck. I'm being polite. My mother spent years beating me over the head with being polite in public. I understand that the rules have changed in the last few years for how men and women are supposed to interact in public, so did I miss one when it comes to holding the door? Is there some secret way to convince someone that I'm just holding the door, not stare raping as my new friend accused me of last week? Please advise Jason in Michigan. Jason, I would suggest just don't bother anymore.
Or hold the door open for everyone.
Of course,
Here in Canada, everyone seems so polite. Moving from South Africa, I was so dumbstruck by how polite everyone is, and I've kind of gotten to the habit of holding the door open for other people as well.
yeah. But I mean, there really is nothing like you will run the risk of being. I mean, a lot of people, assholes are out there, and unfortunately, unlike women on Twitter, you don't get a button to end the encounter. So as soon as Ms. Blue Hair opens her mouth, you can't hit that button and say, yeah, no. But all I can say is, like Theron said, either hold the door open for everyone, which won't help him when it's a woman, because she'll probably still get on his case, as they did in these incidences, or just stop. Hell, make a game of it. See if you can get it to close in their face. Equality! All right, do you want to start the next one?
Sure, I'll do that. Um, Chris has made an inquiry. George Orwell described what he calls the Anti-Sex League in 1984. Feminism cannot survive the internet era where long-term truth always prevails. Given the importance of gynocentrism as a government tool for social control, as the feminist narrative implodes, the likelihood arises for a false flag attack. Call me crazy, but when things start looking bad for the other side, a Montreal-style massacre will likely happen and save the cultural Marxists from the breadline. Remember the Maine.
Yeah, that's a little bit cryptic.
It is kind of cryptic.
I
There seemed to have been a little bit of jumping,
mean, is
but
he talking about like a massive scale false flag that'll be blamed on MRAs, or like what exactly? I'm not sure what. Where
But
he's
I
coming.
don't think that Montreal-style massacre, well, that was actually a false flag. Uh, yeah, anyway, we can puzzle this out, but I wouldn't want to do it for too long. I agree with Chris. There's sort of an eerie similarity between social justice warriors and the Anti-Sex League in 1984. Of course, there's an eerie similarity between them and everything that constituted the Big Brother Party in 1984. They basically just downloaded that book into their brains, I think, and didn't realize that it was a satire or a warning. All right, Nick has made an inquiry. Hi, guys. I hope this is the right place to write fan mail. Well, we received it, Nick, so it is. Sorry if it's not. I'm new to your website. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate what you guys do. I've been listening to your Rant Zerker podcast, and I'm hooked. I'm going through a bit of a rough patch in the moment, but as soon as I can get a stable job, I plan to become a regular patron because I really want to support your awesomeness. I first got introduced to what feminism can do to people 2 years ago when one of my best friends became one. It was incredible. In the space of less than a year, she'd gone from saying, "No, I hate feminists who insult men too. Feminism should be for everyone," to "Lol, misandry isn't real. All men have privilege and should shut the fuck up." I've always been outraged the way men and women, of course, are treated, and I think that all feminism does is fuck everyone over. I mean, the few feminists left who speak sense, like Christina Hoff Sommers, are scorned as not real feminists. Well, assholes like Anita Sarkeesian are considered hallmarks of the cause. Meanwhile, most MRAs I come across, including you guys, are decent, rational people. Well, I don't know, Nick. Even calling me rational might be a stretch, but yeah, we'll go with it. The way that media portrays men's rights activists is gross, and I'm really glad that you're working against that. My former friend's constant rants on men and the media's attitude toward men in general has been getting to me more and more lately. I'm struggling with body dysphoria and identity issues at the moment. I was born a girl, but I've always wanted to be a guy, and ever since I was old enough to walk. I'm becoming more comfortable with that idea because my friends and family are really supportive. But the way everyone talks about men as if they're evil, rapey sociopaths has made me scared to come out. I'm so much scared of transphobia. I'm not so much scared of transphobia, but transmisandry, which according to Tumblr doesn't exist because of reasons. In their warped minds, being trans is a choice, and I'm a traitor for choosing to be a man. I think another reason I denied who I was for so long was because I knew I'd get less shit as a cis woman talking for the rights of men than I would as a trans man talking for the rights of men. All this will do is reinforce the social justice warriors' warped delusions about all trans men being shitlords. But fuck it. I'm not going to let these assholes quash me anyway, and I have you guys and your awesome channels to thank for helping me feel less ashamed of myself. Sincerely, thank you. Thank you so much. Please never stop what you're doing. Love, Nick. All right, Darren, did you want to get on that one, or?
that was so sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you for the message, Nick. And yeah, I in the trans community, the most negativity I face comes from trans men. And I guess I've had kind of unwarranted negative sentiments towards trans men, even though I dated a trans man, and I do really like trans men. Because there is this subset of trans men who are kind of a lesbianic in their worldview. People probably won't like me saying that, but I don't really care. Um, and they basically sound like rad femme man-hating lesbians with beards. Um, and I can tell you're not one of them, and I can tell you don't like them either. So I think you and I are on the same team, and thank you so much.
Well, thanks again, Nick, for writing in. And for anybody who wants to know how to get to the mailbag, you write it to topic@badgerpod.com. That's topic@badgerpod.com. So just send it there. Please put in paragraph breaks. I really appreciate that. It allows me to stop places, it leaves me places to stop speaking. Okay, did you want to take the next one?
Sure, yes, absolutely. So we're at Adam right now.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Badgers. Just like to say, you guys rock, and I love the work you are doing. Just a quick question, really. I watch a daytime show called The Right Stuff here in England, and they often talk about social issues, etc. They often parrot feminist rhetoric like the pay gap, more needs to be done for female equality, etc. What I often hear, if the host saying one of these things, men have had it all their own way for years, thousands of years, or women have been oppressed for thousands of years. What are your thoughts on this? How would you guys combat this type of talk? Could you perhaps talk about this topic on a show? If you do, can you let me know, as I would like to watch it? Could you also let me know if you decide to talk about it? You can
Well,
get...
sorry.
Okay.
Just continue. Sorry about that. I just realized that, well, I didn't really let him know.
Well, you
Sorry.
can. He just says that we can find him on Twitter at pseudonym. Okay, I'll follow you as soon as I get on my Twitter. Cheers, lovely ladies and gents, and keep up the good work. P.S. I love Alison and Karen. They are like amazeballs. I agree with you, Adam. They totally are.
Well, certainly I'm amazing, but not Karen. Karen could go suck a tailpipe. She already does anyway. With all that smoking.
Oh yeah. She might as well. She'd probably be better off if she goes and sucks a tailpipe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So men have had it their own way for thousands. No, this is bullshit. Men have not had it their own way for thousands of years, and they have had the situation has been the way it had to be. What's interesting about moral typecasting as a psychological phenomenon, for those of you who don't know, moral typecasting is our tendency to cast people into two roles, agents and patients. Agents are villains and heroes. Patients are basically damsels. Throughout history, you'll see with those societies that expect men to do the greatest sacrifice, paint men as the most agentive. So they make men out either through social custom or legal expectation, legal laws, expectations, whatever. They make men out to have more power and more responsibility in society than women. And what that does is it enables us to tolerate their sacrifice. The more we see them as agents, the easier it is to watch them die, basically. So if they're saying that men have had it their way throughout history, no. Men have been in the situation where if they're in a situation where they have to sacrifice to get the resources for their families, they will be given a so-called role of greater status. Now, that greater, to me, in my mind, because of moral typecasting, that role of greater status may be seen as compensation, or, in my opinion, what it really is it's a way of numbing us to having to sacrifice them. So because we see them as greater agents, we care less about them in terms of giving them compassion. And that's another effect of moral typecasting. When we put people in the agent category, we care less about them, their subjective experience, their pain, their suffering. We care less about them. When we put them in the damsel category, we care more about them. So in those societies where we've required sacrifice, just male sacrifice to survive, we put them in a greater agent category. So in order to tolerate it. And that's my opinion.
Well, I don't think if you think about it just kind of intuitively or from a common sense perspective, we as the human race as a species would not have come as far and been the most successful species on, that we know of, if we had a system that favored the interests of only half of the population, and that half being gender specific. Like it doesn't make sense. We would have died out or just not have developed as far if it was skewed, if it was somehow skewed in men's favor. That doesn't make any sense. Or if men just had their way. The thing is, the reason we were so successful is because it was a really good trade-off that we could find, evolutionarily speaking.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's good to disagree and have different perspectives. I come from it from the moral typecasting perspective, which actually emphasizes the detriment to men for being in a position of greater power. It's a psychological reality. When you put a group of people and perceive them as agents, you care less about them as people. So you can say, well, men were in charge, but because they were in charge, they were more likely to be sacrificed when they failed, or just sacrificed in the process of providing for everyone else who wasn't in charge. So everything is a trade-off, and I think that needs to be recognized.
Oh yeah, exactly, and I totally agree with you on the moral typecasting thing. I'm not sure if the reward or the status that men received, that feminists seem to perceive as men kind of being privileged or being seen as that so much better than women. Basically, the status that they receive. I don't know um, if they got that as you said, to numb us, or as a reward to have men continue doing what they do to kind of motivate men to keep doing what they do, because it was really fucking tough stuff that they had to do, right? Um, that
Yes.
yeah. So
Well, it not just motivated them. It allowed people, the society, to be able to sacrifice men. It allowed men a certain psychological buffer so they could sacrifice themselves. I mean, feminists will talk about toxic masculinity, but that is the behavior of any group of people that is expected to sustain a higher level of sacrifice, of self-sacrifice, is that they are going to focus on their ability to take action. They're going to focus on their role as an agent, and they're going to soft pedal their experience as a subject, as their vulnerabilities, their suffering, their pain. That's just it's a symptom of the expectation of sacrifice, of treating yourself as expendable. If you want to change that, you first have to do something about the expendability of men, and you can't expect men to do it, because it's not men really who are the ones who are deciding that men are expendable. And it isn't necessarily women either. It might either be a function of biology or a function of some aspect of our socialization that is almost universal. Okay. Did I do the last one?
I think I did the last one. Yes, I did it. So you can do the next one. Yeah.
Okay, Madius has made an inquiry. Hello, Honey Badgers. I'm writing this message to point out some issues with inequality we are having here in Brazil. I don't know if the focus of the show is just to discuss problems related to North America. It isn't, by the way. However, I'm pissed with feminists in my country. A senator just approved a law that allows women and only women to demand a bus stop anywhere after 10 p.m. if she claims she is feeling insecure. The worst part is that there is no resistance. The men's rights movement in Brazil is very, very weak, and most men actually approve the law. There's another law called Maria da Penha that protects women from violence, and the list goes on. I would be glad if I could hear one of you guys address those issues. Thank you, and sorry for my bad English. See ya. Well, you didn't really have bad English, and you kept it short, which I always appreciate it. So thank you for writing in, Matthias. No, this show isn't just about North America. We cover all the things. So, yeah, we have that too, I think, in Canada, that women are allowed to request a bus stop wherever. And like men aren't the ones who are most likely to be victims of violence, but regardless, I don't know if I don't know how we would be able to address those issues aside from bringing attention to them. They happen. It's not fair. I personally think it's abhorrent to decide that men or women are somehow more valuable, their lives are more valuable, which is at the basis of this femicide bullshit in South America. Um, and I uh, I also think it's ridiculous that only women are allowed to request to stop, considering that men are far more likely to be subject of violence. It's actually more dangerous for men to walk through a strange neighborhood with criminals in it than it is for women. As unbelievable as that may sound, it's true. We
It
would
totally,
reduce.
it totally is, and then it's even more so for a trans woman if someone eventually figures out, oh, that's a man. That's like, it's funny because it's like this small switch. Like you can be totally safe as long as you're perceived as a woman, but as soon as they perceive you as a man, you're like at the very bottom of the rung, right? You're like
Mhm.
the broken man. So it's like that switch, and it's like you plummet to the bottom and you're worthless. You're a
Yeah,
worthless man. You have no point to society.
I wanted to
Uh,
pick up on something you said there, Theron. It's exactly right. It's like in this society, women are treated like human beings. Men are treated like robots. And when a man shows any sign of being a broken robot, he goes to the bottom of the pile. Just gone. And sure, robots can carry more and they can do more, or maybe be perceived as being tougher than humans. And maybe we live in a robot archy. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway.
a robot orky, I like that. Okay, me next?
Yep.
Okay. So Michael wrote, "Hi, would you girls and guys like to comment on the new plan by feminist Canadian politicians to exclude male victims from refugee assistance?" Oh my god, yes! To me, I cannot imagine that in the 21st century we are still using the old women and children first line. I cannot believe we as a society are not calling this out as bizarre and sickening sexism. I know the badges are, quote, Muslim skeptic. Maybe that's because Arab men are not very poetic or dignified when they rise up against dictators. Or maybe Islam, like all religion, is seen as, quote, primitive. But as a Muslim myself, I can tell you that Islam privileges women. It is not it does not coerce women to do anything they don't want. The only reason it isn't feminism as much is because
As such.
feminism as such is because it values male contributions, male dignity, male humanity. The only reason I just and it says that in religious/spiritual matters men should lead. That is, lead, not rule. I don't understand why men from any country or religion are being equated with crime. Well, I do understand. Feminism equates all men with crime. Man equals crime. But as a criminologist working in a university, I can say that most men never commit crimes, let alone terrorism, which almost no one commits. In the same way, almost all refugees are so far from dreaming of terrorism that there is no excuse for calling them potential terrorists. Is it unadulterated and malignant sexist, pure and simple? No? Well, I'd like to say something right off the bat. Yes, it is, and I'm really angry about it. And I actually spoke to my dad about it the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, well, single men, because what they're doing is they're including women, children, and families. So basically, any man who isn't responsible for a woman or a child is a potential terrorist, and therefore is being excluded." And I spoke to my dad about it, and he was like, "Well, they are the highest likelihood of being the terrorists." And then I was like, "What? Are you?" And yeah, I was quite upset about the whole thing. Anyway,
Well, I mean, the thing is that there are now also they're getting around that by having female suicide bombers. So, in the only study that I've seen looking into the gender ratio was in an Eastern European country, and they found a fairly high, like 35% were female suicide bombers or terrorists. So it's not. I don't think there's that big a difference that would justify this. The other thing is that the recruitment methods that they use, the terrorist organizations use, are pretty horrific too. I think both to men and women. Like they use rape and other kinds of blackmail, and I mean it's pretty gruesome stuff. I personally agree that this is sexism. If you and it really, I think that even this, I'm going to say this, even if it offends the Muslim writer who wrote in, the practice of polygyny is extremely misandrous, and it's true about in the Muslim practice and also the Mormon practice. What we see with the Mormon practice is they have all of these extra boys that they have to get rid of somehow, and it's like they'll just dump them off in the middle of, like they would dump off an animal, just in the middle of nowhere. I guess hopefully they'll, like maybe they'll starve to death or something, so they won't be troublesome to their family. And I think that happens in the Middle East too, which is why we see such a high rate of, I guess, unemployment of young men, and also the sexual abuse of young men, which is going to have its social problems. There's going to be fallout for that. So I would suggest if they were going to take refugees, I don't think they should discriminate based on sex, but they should definitely have a good screening program, and also have some sort of way of dealing with the problems that these individuals are going to have socially and integrating into society. And if that means taking less but doing it right, then do that. That's my opinion.
Well, it just really speaks to how we see a man who isn't providing for a woman or child is kind of worthless, you know, and that kind of having all single men bear the brunt of a few terrorists is absolutely fine, because we don't really value those men anyways, because they have nothing to give to women or children. And it really emphasized that to me, and that's why I was so angry when I first heard about it.
Yeah, there's not really much more to say than yes, it is sexism, and I am a little bit leery of any of the kind of propaganda that comes out that makes Muslim men into, as it's so reminiscent of the kind of stuff like the Black Beast or the Jewish pedophile kind of stuff, out to be these sexual predators. And it's entirely possible that there may be a per capita, just because there is such an epidemic of sexual abuse of boys in the culture, that there are more Muslim men who are sexually abusive. I mean, because there's going to be a large amount, that small percentage of men who are abused who go on to abuse. But I guess the solution there would be get them some intervention. Okay, Jim O'Connor, recognize the victimhood, recognize the problems, and get intervention. So Jim O has made an inquiry. Dear Badgers, I really appreciate your work. Please consider that traditionalism is the best deal men can get within the requirements of a society which is sufficiently fault-tolerant to weather the occasional upheaval. If you plan your system for average load, your system won't last. You have to plan your system for the peaks and valleys. Egalitarians look at the steady state and say, yes, we can make this work. Individual men are more disposable to civilization. We are the extremes of the distribution. This is necessary. It makes humanity so much more resilient. It's reality. We have to deal with it. Best to you all. Keep up the good work. Jim O, I disagree completely. We are in a traditionalist society in which men are being treated as expendable, and women are being coddled and cosseted and babied and given little soothers to suck on, little mental soothers to suck on. What do you think feminism is doing? It's basically traditionalism gone mad. Men are completely expendable and totally responsible, and women need to be coddled in ways that our ancestors would just drop their jaws at. This is that system gone fucking mad. So please consider that traditionalism is the best deal that men can get within the required. This is traditionalism. This is the madness at the end of that long tunnel. And the only way to combat it, as far as I can tell, the only way to create a sustainable system at this point in time is to recognize the vulnerabilities of men and start to challenge this bullshit, because coddling and cosseting women is what is completely destroying our society right now. It's the biggest threat against our fundamental freedoms, is this idea that certain people are putting our fundamental freedoms in opposition with women's benefit to in the end will benefit, you know, big corporations and big government more than anyone, but they are saying that our freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of even the purely almost first time ever laissez-faire capitalism of the internet, everything, all of that is in opposition to women's security. And we need to cosset and coddle the women. And that's what's tearing us apart. That narrative is tearing us apart. So we've gone to the end of the road. We need to find a new story. Or we need to find a new method of dealing and structuring with society aside from let's make sure women are safe and protected. And because this is the biggest threat that I can see right now. So do you want to get in there, Theron?
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot because I've actually been considering like conservative kind of tenets or talking points, and I found myself agreeing with a lot of it. And maybe you would disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But I have come to find the value in a traditional family structure, at least, because I kind of started thinking back about where I came from and how lucky I was about the fact that I had my mom as a stay-at-home mom who stayed with me, you know, and nurtured me kind of 24/7. I just had a close bond, and I'm so happy I wasn't just shoved into like an aftercare or a daycare school. And my dad kind of working really, really hard to provide for us all. I also see like how my dad got the shit end of the stick, but at least in traditionalism and in the traditionalist kind of setup that my parents had, my dad was praised and he got a lot of honor for what he did. Nowadays, we live in a traditionalist society where men get no honor or praise. So I can see the appeal of traditionalism. I'm kind of libertarian in the sense that if a traditionalist setup works for you, if traditional setups works for you, then totally go for it. And if you think it works better, totally make the case. I don't think that in your message you convinced me or anyone why traditionalism is you know, better. Maybe you can and just haven't, but you didn't in this scenario. But I'd say, you know, if you feel it works for you, then do it. And if you feel that it would work for the average person better, then I'm totally willing and ready to hear the case that you have to make for traditionalism.
I think the case is that traditionalism is the best men can get. Well, yeah, that may be the case, but we're facing an extinction level event right now. Like this is the end of an empire, and like seriously, this is like when I talked about threat narratives, I explained how they describe the rise and falls of empires. We are in the end stage of an empire, and it's entirely possible that we could have a dark ages that follows this, a technological void. And if we end up in that technological void, it's also entirely possible that we will never get out again, because we may have gotten the last of our easy crude that could create a society like this. So, as much as I agree that that traditionalism has been, well, let me clarify. a traditionalism where the women's role was constrained. Because the thing is, the traditionalism of yesteryear, women were constrained by actual hard physical limits. Like, if they didn't do their work, if they didn't take responsibility, if they didn't step up, people died. That's the traditionalism of yesteryear. Women worked, and their labor was often the difference between life and death for their families and their communities, and that kept them on the straight and narrow. Now we're in a society where women's labor is no longer needed to keep us alive, and we've gone nuts with this idea of protecting. The way I would describe it before is a traditional society. Women are the logistics. They're the troops, the army that are the soldiers that are responsible for getting the food to everyone in the army. Men were part of the infantry, so they were responsible with gauging directly with the enemy. Now, it makes sense that the infantry will protect the logistics, because if the logistics isn't working, they're fucked. But in our current society, there's no need for logistics anymore, because men are pretty much doing everything. So we've created this situation where we're protecting women, but they're not actually doing the role that we originally required their protection, which was logistical, which was keeping everybody fed, keeping the army fed, and keeping them alive. In that sense, it makes total sense to protect women if they're the ones keeping the community from starving. Their day-to-day labor is the ones keeping the community from starving. And men are the ones who are improving the status of each individual family, or getting luxuries or whatever. And that's what you see in a peasant society. Now, that made sense to protect women when they were providing the function of logistics. Now they're not. So fuck it. And the whole concept of protecting them is what's tearing our society apart. We need to challenge it, for the simple fact that I don't want our civilization to end. I rather like it to continue. And I know that when an empire descends into this kind of battling internal threat narrative, it's done for. And the only way forward is to completely challenge that and try to change the game board. And I don't know if anybody's following me.
I know what you mean. Like, our environment has changed so incredibly rapidly and drastically that we obviously need to change our gender relations, because not only is it kind of archaic and anachronistic, but it's also kind of detrimental right now, because it's not only because it's not needed, but because we need something else. We need something better. We need something that conforms better to the civilization that we have right now, and something that's more congruent with freedom, I guess.
What we need now is to shake out this threat narrative. What's happening is everyone is creating a threat narrative again around their own particular victim cause, and essentially disemboweling our culture from the inside out. And that's the end game of a empire. That's the end game. So our way forward is to look right into the eye of the storm. We either we just accept the end with grace, or we challenge directly what is destroying us. A threat narrative will cause an empire to rise, and in the end days, it will cause it to fall and collapse in on itself. So we can either get to the point where we say, you know what, these threat narratives, which, basically let's protect the logistics as the threat narrative, because if the women go, we go. This threat narrative, it's done its course. It's got us to this point. Now we got to deconstruct it, because it's going to destroy us. And that's my opinion on that. And also, I think that if you think about it, the West would be perfectly fine if there was still a sense of solidarity and people working together for a common cause, instead of fracturing into these fucking narratives around pet victimhood. Every single threat narrative, at the center of every single threat narrative, is a victim or a victim group. And that's always what happens. In other empires, it was tribes breaking the empire apart, dividing it up. Because they would say, well, we're victims of the blue tribe. We're victims of the green tribe. Get those greenies before they get us. I mean, it's always the same. It's always breaking up around some story of victimhood. And then that's it. It's over. Well, we're smart enough now and we have enough insight and enough awareness of this pattern that maybe we can go for that brass ring and directly challenge what destroys empires and bring about something more sustainable, something a little bit more evolved. Probably will have its own problems because, we're humans, we like problems. Can't get rid of our problems, it's too boring without them, right? But maybe we won't slump into a dark age. Okay, that's the last email. Do either of you have any concluding thoughts? I just muted you because you were having a lot of, I don't know what you were doing.
Me?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. You don't have to apologize. You just were making a lot of noise, so I muted you.
I don't have any conclusive statements, just on that last message. I guess if we admit that traditional gender roles or traditionalism worked and was good at one point, does that mean that in some lesser developed societies today they're still necessary and that we shouldn't get rid of them? Like, should we get rid of them universally in terms of, like, should we free up the genders from traditionalism universally, or is it actually still needed in lesser developed societies?
Well, I can't really say anything about that. I guess maybe I'm a Western exceptionalist. I think that we need to figure out how to resolve this thing that kills empires. And the way we do it is by challenging. And we have to go directly to the moral typecasting, to this idea that people are in two categories, victims or agents, or villains and heroes or victims. And we need to evolve past that narrative. Otherwise, we're just gonna break apart, and we're gonna fracture along these lines, and that's gonna be it. And that'll suck, because it took a lot of work to get to this point, a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. It would be really fucking shit if we just didn't fucking take that last step and just figured it out and moved past it. Did something different for once. The song has been sung. Let's find a new song. Well, in terms of traditional gender roles, it depends on how you define them. I think men and women will still come together and have children, and they'll probably raise those children in the ways that are best for them. It's not that bad to have a guy take care of his kids full time. They tend to do very well under that scenario, and it's not that bad to have a woman take care of their kids full time, and it's not that bad for parents to work and have the grandparents help out with childcare. These are not bad things. I think that people can arrange that in whatever way they want or works for them. But the real thing, in my mind, is that we somehow solve the problem of threat narratives, of these narratives of spinning out these tales of victimhood, and then tearing our society apart based on those fracture lines. And if we do that, then I think we got something good going as people, as a species. I'd like that. I'd like to move on. Let's find something new.
I can agree on that.
Very much so.
Yeah. All right. So now it's time for the e-beggings. So if you enjoy what we have to say, if you want to help bring about, I got my ideas. How we could do this. How we can navigate this end of empires is usually the way it happens. You start fracturing into these competing threat narratives, and then that's it. I got my ideas. I think identifying the problem is one, and that's discussing it and getting as many brains and many perspectives on the issue is another. So that's what we do at Honey Badger Radio. And I plan to do what I can to fight against the dying of the light. And if you want to do that as well, if you want to fight by our side, consider becoming a patron. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. There are a number of patron rewards. You get to sort of be in the nerve center. If you pledge like $5 an episode to about $30 max a month, you get access to the nerve center, which is a Skype, and then you get to hear all of the secret plannings. They're not secret, but they are sort of somewhat secret, little secret. It's like the nerve state. It's the brain stem of the operation. You get right in there and you can take part and discuss these issues and these ideas. Anyway, once again, that's www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. I want to thank Anna Cherry and Darren Meyer for joining me today. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it's always wonderful. I like your voice. You should be a GPS. Someone was saying you should be like a hologram voice, a little bit of like echo. And
I'll look into that.
yeah, you'd be like Cortana. Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, well, anyway, good night, and thank you all.